Despite the pervasive feeling that the world is busy trying to be distracted today, I think that actually something else is going on that's much more meaningful, in fact, kind of profound. I think that people aren't just wanting to be distracted from their lives. I think that people are trying to escape their lives. Now, escape and distraction are two different things. Distraction means you don't want to pay attention to something, but you know you're going to come back to it. Escape means you want to get somewhere else. You know that something about where you are is not right, or is confining, or is not good for you. And I think that a lot of us today are seeking some kind of escape. But then the question comes, what are people wanting to escape to? Do they even know? Well, I think we can look at popular movements like the incredible rise of interest in psychedelic experiences or the saturation of yoga and meditation in the world. Typically, when people are cultivating what we might generally call spiritual experiences, and that means whether you're religious, atheistic, spiritual but not religious, whatever your background is, but if you're cultivating experiences that take you out of the ordinary modes of perception, then typically we're craving, I think, four key things. And these are four things that we see as kind of hallmarks of spiritual experiences, psychedelic experiences, or even flow states. The first is that these experiences typically reveal or expose our conditioning. In profound moments of spiritual experience, flow states, or altered states of consciousness, we have a glimpse that perhaps the lives that we have been prepared for are not the only lives we could live. We have a glimpse that the culture that we have been brought up in might not be the only way to do things. And so exposing cultural conditioning and lifelong habits is a first foundational quality of these transformative experiences. The second is that spiritual experiences typically free us from what I would call the tyranny of the self. In the modern world today, by virtue of our own mechanics, but also the world of marketing and media, we are constantly driven back towards individualism. What's in it for me? And what do I want? And how does this affect me? And yet, the irony is that the more we are obsessed with how things affect us and what they mean for us, the less self satisfaction we have. So, in these altered states or alternative experiences of perception, we begin to realize that we are a part of an extraordinary symphony of life, and that our perspective is not the only perspective, that our life is not the only life. And rather than being intimidating or diminishing, we find that freedom from individualism and the experience of the collective to be liberating and inspiring and fulfilling. The fourth is the opening to creativity. Another one of the hallmarks of spiritual experiences, altered states of consciousness, and psychedelics is a sense of being able to not only see the confines of our regular thinking and our regular culture, but to begin to think and feel and imagine beyond what is normal, regular, or typical. In fact, it is not a secret at all that some of the world's greatest inventors and innovators, from business to science, mathematics, and of course the arts, are people that have been influenced by altered states of consciousness. Now, whether that's Albert Einstein having a dream about the mechanics of light, or whether that's the literal use of drugs in the creation of music, or in the recreational time of a scientist who later comes to a great idea, what we find is that radical open-mindedness and the willingness to embrace creativity are hallmarks not only of achievement, but deep satisfaction and a sense of wholeness. We are born to be more creative, even if that's just about how you're living your simple everyday life. And finally, the fourth of the hallmarks of these extraordinary altered states or spiritual experiences is the perception of a larger system of meaning. Very, very common to flow states, psychedelic states, spiritual experiences. We find that people experience a quality of perception or an awareness that the world we live in is not chaotic at all, that it's not random, that in fact there is order and design everywhere. Now, some people will interpret this through religious lenses and they will call that the work of God, or they'll call it some kind of a miracle. Some people are more spiritual than religious, so they'll call that consciousness or energy. And certainly in the rational, material, atheistic, scientific world, we can still appreciate the same phenomena because it feels like we are experiencing um, the fundamental design of the natural world. And of course, it's true. We know that by virtue of design, all things are possible. So, this isn't really a spiritual principle. The phone or video screen that you're on works because the universe is organized in consistent laws of chemistry and physics. And these laws and these designs not only reach back to the very beginning of our universe, but they are pervasive in all things everywhere around us. And it turns out they are also at work in our perceptive reality, our psychology, and our inner world. And when we practice um, any number of techniques, spiritual or not, that allow us to move out of the ordinary modes of perception and into the meditative mind or the spiritual mind, we discover that we can actually see, feel, and perceive an extraordinary order in the universe that we are part of, that is a part of us, and fills us with an innate sense of meaning. We can live in alignment with that design, and that is empowering and fulfilling and independent of our conditions. Spiritual experiences are absolutely necessary to the fulfillment of an individual life, to the transformation of a culture, and they have always been a part of human nature and human evolution. If you want to learn more about this, of course, like and follow or check out my new book, The 7 Gateways of Spiritual Experience. I'm Dr. Jonathan Ellerby, and I hope to see you soon.